It's season 4 and it's a fresh new episode series for us. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Enlightened Conversations, where each week we invite guests to share their views on the world, work and their personal lives in an enlightened way. Our hosts have been chosen especially to role model just how we do an enlightened conversation. Today's episode is hosted by Michelle Lightworker.
Hey everyone, and welcome to season 4 of Enlightened Conversations. I'm Michelle Lightworker, your host for today, and I have the wonderful Aleckson joining me for the first episode. I'm so excited, Anne. How are you?
Yay, it's the first episode. That's really exciting to me. I'm often the first episode for people on their podcast, so that's fun.
Oh, I love that. I love that because I feel like you definitely hold space for anything that can happen and all that can happen being the nature of who you are. And we will talk about the interesting little moment we had just before coming on board, given the topic matter today, which is, yes, how we can be withable. And I'll just introduce Anne for you. Anne Aleckson gives a voice to the power within as the channel for the non-physical, all that is, creating transformation through the vibrational frequency of the spoken word and guiding visionaries to be and lead the change they want to see in the world as we co-create a new peaceful world that serves both the individual and collective humanity, which I absolutely love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for that beautiful introduction. And it's such a pleasure to be here once again.
Yeah, it's so awesome, and it jumped out at me this topic of how can we achieve this beingness of being unfuckwithable. I know it's hard to say the word fuck, and
I love that word.
Yeah, it's sometimes challenging for some people to hear it, but in the nature of what we're talking about, it's about not being rattled and maintaining that sense of inner peace and that equilibrium.
So it's not always comfortable for me to use that word too, because I know that there are people around me who don't like to hear that word. And sometimes it just doesn't feel comfortable to me. It sounds a bit like, out there in the world, there's lots of people using words that trigger, specifically to trigger. And so sometimes I decide I choose not to use that word, and I replace it with something like untriggerable, which is even harder to say, or unbreakable. But it's really about becoming so strong in your own frequency, so high vibrational, holding your own frequency so strongly that no one can push you off your high frequency.
Yes.
And
yes.
minding your own vibration, which is the most important part of it.
Yes. And I think we all know and have felt what it's like to be triggered. Sometimes we act out and we don't realize we've been triggered. So there are sort of those stages to, am I being triggered? How do I know I'm triggered? And working our way through to, okay, I could be triggered right now, but I'm choosing to see the situation in a different way as well. Because I think that when our thoughts create our vibrational reaction, a lot of the time, if we catch our thoughts before they hit, and we change our thoughts, it changes our vibration straight away, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And something that I've been learning over the period of time that I'm now looking after my mother and dealing with people that, I don't always spend a lot of time with, because they are people who trigger me back to my childhood. And one of the things that I've been learning is, even if you do react, then being able to immediately step back and apologize because you've recognized your own trigger.
Yeah.
And it's weird for other people. I've gotten comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm really sorry I just blew up. This is about me. It's not about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think owning it, and even owning the physical manifestation of the trigger too, because when we're triggered, we have a traumatic response or a trauma response. Our adrenaline might go through the roof and might start shaking. Those are really good indicators that we've been triggered, or we feel like a hot spot in our body or a weird spot in our body. and like they literally say you fly off the handle. Sometimes we like literally leave our body and we're like, where am I? And it might take a little moment for us to kind of acknowledge that and be okay with that, and then admit that to somebody else, and then say, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm really needing to ground myself at the moment, and and give them an opportunity to. I think at that moment it's a bit of a vulnerable state of being when you've been triggered and you're apologizing, because one of two things can happen.
Yes.
The person can accept your humanity and meet you at your map of the world, or they can, if they've held you in high esteem, they might their world might come crashing down because you're human, or if they have been looking for an opportunity to violate you in some oppressive way with their energy, they may take that opportunity. So it can't be understated, really, the vulnerability that amount of courage takes.
Exactly. Vulnerability, and then the courage it takes to be that vulnerable. Because, if people aren't also doing their inner work like you are and we are, and some of, if not all of the audience are, and they're totally unaware of this sort of thing, then yes, it can trigger them to behave even worse, which is what happened to me just a few weeks ago. But then it's on me then to take ownership of what was mine. I've apologised. There's nothing else I can do at this point, and let them be what they need to be. Hoping, I always have hope that they'll recognise that they were triggered as well. But I can't hold on to that. That has to just be their thing.
And then once again, we're looping back around to minding our own vibration and not spending an inordinate amount of time focusing on, well, why don't they take care of their vibration? Why do I have to take care of my vibration all the time?
Exactly. And do you know what is even, I keep saying, and you know what's even more important, but you know what's even more important is this. When you start to take 100% responsibility, recognising your triggers, apologising for them, letting the other person be who they need to be in that moment as well. And then the most important next thing is to recognise that in actual fact, and I know you've got this down pat, we're all one.
Yeah.
So that wasn't someone else reacting to me. It was me triggering myself so that I could grow enough to deal with my own stuff and let them be who they are without any expectation of how they need to behave or whether they need to do it just because I did.
Yes. And I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much when I say this. Sorry, people, if I am. But summarize in my own energy and in my own being that being triggered is simply an invitation to being more of who I am, realizing more of who I am.
Absolutely. And that's what I love so much about the work that I do and the work that you do, is that we truly live that place of, I am one with everything. I am one with all that is. Therefore, anything that is outside of me that makes me feel any certain way, good or bad, is irrelevant. But anything outside of me that makes me feel any certain way is simply an invitation for me, or a gift to me, to clean up what needs to be cleaned up inside of me.
Love
right?
that.
So, and in doing so, we release the other from the need to show up in that way that triggers me, because I don't need to have that trigger anymore. So it releases them. And I mean, that's how we change the world, isn't it?
I guess you could say that as much as they're liberators of our stepping into our wholeness, that we too are liberators for them to step into their wholeness. If we're holding on to something like in resentment or grudges or judgment about them, as in trying to fuck with me,
Yes.
rather than seeing them as being an invitation to my own healing, then we are holding on to stop, sort of like a part of them, their soul, and stopping them from reclaiming that
Yes,
and
yes.
recognizing that. It's like we've got a part of us that's got like a little bit of an ownership on that part of them for a bit. And that's why I'm really big on how we think about world leaders, like how we think about them actually influences them. So if we can't be at peace with the process of what world leaders are doing, even if it doesn't look like the best decisions, if we can reset our frame in our mind, go, well, world consciousness needs this to be happening at this point in time for whatever reason, for healing. Those leaders are at this moment behaving in what we would deem bad. However, it is a catalyst for us to catapult us to our own healing. If we can't reframe it like that, we're like contributing to holding us back from the
exactly. We're continuing to invite them to do that, right? So again, even with so I was talking about like people triggering you, but also about world events triggering you. Like, for instance, when we did the shutdown and everyone was in fear, I was sitting here saying, we asked for it. Otherwise, why would we have created it? We're the greatest creator being on this planet. And everything outside of me is a reflection of something within me that I've left unhealed. So if the fact that we shut down and I went into fear, that's not about the fact that we shut down. That's about the fact that there's fear in me that needs to be cleaned up. How could we go into a peaceful world if we don't all have no fear?
That's right.
And
you know what? It really took it there, didn't it? Like death, what we really value, what we're assigning our time, people quietly quitting now because they've realized that, just so many realizations that I think you and I, having been in the healing industry for so many years, we could see that there was a tipping point that humanity was coming to, insofar as needing to look at themselves and in terms of evolving personal development. And when this hit, it gave people an opportunity to actually sit and be and stop and look and be pushed in a way, a little gentle nudge from the Soviet universe, to say, hey, here it is. Have a look. See what you think. See what needs tending to. See.
And even there, Michelle, I really like to look at it as an invitation from myself, to really step into that creator level, I guess, and ownership and oneness and total 100% responsibility. When my sister shows up and triggers me, that's actually me in a body that looks like someone else, giving me what I'm asking for, because I'm continually saying, I want to be expanding in every moment.
Yeah.
And so how can I not expand? I mean, how can I not expand when someone triggers me? I mean, that's the whole point of the trigger, is to become more from that trigger when you take ownership of it, instead of giving the ownership to someone that looks like they're separate from you, but in actual fact is simply a reflection of who you are.
And having a look at, how do I do that to myself in my everyday life? What that person's doing to me, taking it back to, do I treat myself like that still? Am I angry at a part of myself that treats me that way? Where is this coming from? And
exactly.
And am I really treating myself the best I could be treating myself right now? And instead of directing the anger at them, owning, taking responsibility for how I'm treating myself like that.
And what I'm thinking about myself. It's always what I'm thinking about myself. When I find myself going into paranoia, I mean, it doesn't happen too often, but I had this conversation with another family member the other day who was feeling really uncomfortable in a shopping centre environment because, they felt like everyone was a little bit of paranoia coming up. And I was like, well, it's not about other people looking at you and judging you. It's because there's a belief in you that there's something in you that you don't like about yourself, and you think everyone else will judge you, but it's only ever you judging yourself. There's no one out there judging you. Everybody's judging themselves all the time. They're too busy judging themselves to judge anyone else.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter how many powers that be want to take a look into who we are and what we're doing and where we are at any moment of every day or anything like that. What really matters is what we're doing and how we feel we look, because we might be doing things that we're not proud of. And the thought that someone else is seeing that might freak us out. But it's really a reflection of our own opinion of ourselves. And as you were talking, I want to loop back to what we were talking about, because what dropped in as you were talking was, where are you locking yourself down? Like, not you, Anne, but just the question, because of the, how many people were like feeling caged in and locked down and oppressed. It's like, well, hang on, let's take that back to ourselves. Where are we locking ourselves down?
Where are we not being ourselves, our true, authentic self?
Wow.
Absolutely.
Hit me so hard, I had to say it. Please follow through with your thought of what you were going to say.
No. It's all good. I mean, it's perfect, right? Even what happened just before.
Oh, yes, just before. Where, interesting enough, I was listening to our podcast from season 2, and this morning, because I wanted to see what we spoke about last time, and I was super excited to listen to it, just to see what we talked about. It was all about listening with your whole body, and a lot of other things as well, which I love, because I want to ask you a question about that. But it was interesting because when we got on the Zoom call to do this, it said join with audio, and I didn't know I had to press that because it was the first time it came up for me. I always just have, the mute button there on or off. So we had some listening issues, and this topic on being withable, and then it's like listening issues where that's really important to us, like to listen, and we were talking about that. And so I just thought that was really ironic as well.
That is incredibly interesting that happened, and that we'd been talking about listening and those sorts of things, because yes, that's the thing, isn't it? And what comes to me is listening to your own self-judgments, your own thoughts about yourself, or even your own thoughts about someone or something else, and look at it and go, okay, if I'm thinking that about that, then at some level I'm thinking that about me. And allow yourself to do whatever process you do, because there's so many, right? But I have my own, of course, that I use and teach people and do with my clients. It's to do with breathing and being present and feeling your emotions. But yeah, I mean, this is what this is all about. You become unfuckwithable or untriggerable or unbreakable when you truly are just simply minding your own business, minding your own, just living your life, knowing that everything that you do for yourself, everything that you think about yourself, blah, 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 is reflected out there into the world. And it brings me back to what's happening in the world currently. In fact, I don't know if you're into all the conspiracy stuff, but there's lots of stuff about babies at the moment. Or there has been throughout the COVID thing, about children in tunnels and these sorts of things. And so for me, when I started hearing about that and seeing all the panic and fear, I was telling my clients, because you can't really tell this out in the general public, but I'm going to. But I was saying to my clients, well, it's actually our collective inner child that's being kept in tunnel. That we need to rescue. It's up to us to rescue that part of ourselves. Then we won't need to see it reflected out there in the world.
Yes. Once again,
so it's the inner work.
Yes, our thought processes feed it, or heal it, and that healing does take that moment of clarity where we go, it's actually my business to focus on my inner child, so that I'm not contributing and contaminating to that collective lower vibrational frequency consciousness that is currently feeding that.
And we're having a pandemic at the moment of people in fear, that there's this collective group of beings that at the 1%, the top of the world, that are controlling everything. And so the pandemic of fear is happening, and that's actually feeding that, because the more we fear that we have no control, the more we give our control to them. And again, them don't exist. Them are there to teach me to have my own power, to come back to who I truly am, which is a power, right?
Absolutely. And I'm seeing this vision of, as we're handing our power over, we're also that whole thing again of not allowing that situation to evolve, because we're putting our own impression on it, our own heaviness on it, our own disowned, part on it.
Yeah.
And so it's because we're all one, and that unity consciousness just weaves back and forward. If we're not at peace with the whole, whatever unpeaceful situation looks like, then, and not, when I say that, by all means, we're taking all the steps we can to be in the solution, to contribute the right energy to the planets and to ourselves, in insofar as our higher consciousness, the best parts of ourselves, looking at the situation and ourselves. So we're doing all those active things, not being passive, but it's not, again, not contributing to the contamination of a lower vibrational frequency.
Well, I so agree with you, and so it's really important to be clear about what current reality is, and then choose a different reality for your own future.
1,000,000% understand.
And to take that step from, this is current reality, it's horrible, there are people controlling us, they're trying to take away our money, they're trying to do this and that and that. That's current reality. We have to own that, we have to accept that, and then we have to go, and I'm now going to step out of that current reality and into my preferred reality, and I'm going to mind my own vibration, mind my frequency in that reality while this is playing out. You can have both in the same moment.
Oh, absolutely.
And the more you spend in the future reality, in the preferred reality, the more you will let go of what is current reality. And then the more people that join you in that, well, I mean, we get to the tipping point, don't we? And then that they just cannot have that control anymore.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone who's sovereign, and we are, chooses to give their power away. We are sovereign beings. We don't have to give our power away, but we're choosing it in many instances right now because of what we've been through. So,
yes.
absolutely,
yes.
We're sovereign beings.
It's about stepping out of spiritual elitism. By having learned something, I'm now better than you, and you're acting in this lower consciousness, and
we're all the same. We're all one.
It's like, well, I've got those parts of me too. So how do I feel about them right now? Yeah. And then I just keep hearing this, and it's like from being triggered to being activated. So when we look at the trigger as an activator, then we're no longer triggered. We're just activated. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm being activated. What's going on for me now? Like, what do I need to own? It's a different energy completely, because we're no longer the victim. Because when you look at the word trigger, it's very much from the victim, isn't it?
Yes,
when you look at the word, I'm being activated, it's almost like you're helping me. Thank you.
It's a powerful, powerful expression. In fact, I do activations. So I love that you were feeling into that word as well, because I do a lot of activations. But again, I want to be really, really clear about this, because I'm no different than anyone else. We are all the same. And, I try to live my life where I look outside and go and just live in this compassionate place of, oh, that person over there is this way, and they're exactly the same as me. They are feeling what I would feel. They're the same as me. There's no separation between us. There's no difference between us, even though it might look like there is. There actually isn't. And that's the same for you and me, as well as those people that we consider might be trying to control the world.
Yeah.
They're the same as us. They're in so much bloody fear. That's why they're trying to control the world. They're in so much lack. That's why they're trying to control the money and hoarding the money. So it's exactly the same thing at a different level.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I have a question that I am wanting to put out there myself, and I felt like it would be lovely to have a chat with you about it. The question I have is, before I get to the question, I just want to sort of say, I guess you could say, in our scientific community, we look for evidence to prove things. And when we have evidence, it's provable, and we write papers on it and they get published, and then people become doctors. And, there's a whole trajectory on that of evidence-based research.
Yep.
And my experience tells me something around feelings. And so my question is, are feelings evidence?
The way that I kind of am tuning into here around this is that while a scientist has an idea or a concept and then proves it by experiencing it, right? Because that's how they prove it. They experience it in a moment. It's exactly the same as I come from a place of faith. I have faith that, that I have that faith from experience, right? It's the same thing. So faith and scientific evidence are the same thing in my book, because, as I said, science, they have an idea, they try to prove it, and when they have proven it by experiencing it, they have faith in it. And me,
I love that.
over here, I'm having this information come through, or whatever it is, or I'm feeling just like yesterday, I manifested the most amazing experience and I shared it because I follow my intuition every day, because I have faith in my intuition and my guides to lead me to where I need to go. I have literally given up everything to follow my guidance. And nobody understands me. Nobody, they're always saying, why would you do that? What? And I'm like, well, because I was told to, or I felt that this was the right thing for me to do. So manifesting is what's currently popular in the spiritual kind of arena. Although for me, it's not a spiritual thing, but at the same time, it's a natural byproduct of being spiritual at the level where you're just in total faith, right? So the story was that just very quickly, I've been needing to buy a dress for my son's wedding, and it's 3 weeks out, and everyone's like, well, what are you going to wear? And I'm like, I don't know, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. And I woke up one morning and I had woken up from a dream, and I knew exactly where the dress was, and yesterday was the day to go and get it. And so I did. I walked into the shopping centre. Everyone thought I was going to go to every shop. I went to one shop, asked a lady where the formal dresses were for weddings, saw it immediately, picked it up. She insisted on giving me a couple of other dresses to try on, but I knew already I was going to buy that one. It was the one that had spoken to me in my dream, right? And that's manifestation.
Definitely.
I didn't know that I wanted to go and get the dress now. I was just kind of happy to do it the day before if that's what was called to me. So what I'm saying here around your question is that was evidence to me. That's the evidence that I create, is this: I wake up from a dream, I know there's a dress, I know it's at this shop, and I go and buy it, and I know it's going to be discounted, and it was. I manifested that, and that's an experience that I had, so that's my proof.
Yep. Right? So many things happen, like when you listen to your body, listen with your whole body, to your dream, to people, to what's going on around you.
Well, the thing is that I don't remember that I have those dreams, but I wake up knowing that I dreamed it.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know, I had a dream about a dress and this is where it's going to be. I wake up knowing that I'm going to buy a dress today,
And you follow the thread, do the next step, and it gets closer. Like literally, like get in the car, turn it
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
drive to the shops,
I said to my mother
very
that
practical.
day, I said to my mum, I'm going to buy a dress tomorrow. It's going to be in Chermside, it's going to be at David Jones, and it's going to be discounted.
Mm-hmm.
And she laughed. I said, it's
Mm.
true, Mum. You just wait.
I can't wait to see you in it.
Thank you.
And it sounds like you live the way I live, which is
Yeah.
I really do trust the next thing to turn up to. And after writing Conversations with Ralph 4 years ago,
Yeah.
after writing that book and coming to the end of season 3 with Enlightened Conversations and doing work with, as executive producer of 5D TV, it was a lot going on. But I got told my next step was going to be to go into recruitment. And it was very different. I hadn't, I've never had that as a goal in my life. But
I remember when that happened and I was like, what?
what are you doing, Michelle? But it was literally, I've been told this is what I've got to do. So I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've spent the last 4 years inside of recruitment, which led to HR, which led to teaching leaders, doing training for leaders. It's kind of been an interesting process to go to just follow the thread, because it was so away, not in a way away from what I'd been doing, but it was so necessary, I got told to, because I was told 4 years ago that in 5 years the inside of businesses would be completely different. And they are. Look at what happened. I know, right? COVID,
so exciting.
everything. Yeah, right. So I'm like, wow. And that happened 2 years before COVID that I started looking. And so, and so where I'm at now is I'm super convinced that more and more businesses on the inside of bigger businesses, not just our wonderful entrepreneurs that are doing fantastic work in this Lightworker community and with the high vibe principles that we talk about. But what I'm convinced is that there is a really big shift on the inside of organizations, and they are actually encouraging people to trust their intuition now.
I so agree.
It's interesting. So to trust your feelings, to honor yourself, to reflect, all these terms that we've been talking about, just for personal development.
Well, I mean, but this is the thing, Michelle, and people like you and I and our friends on Soul TV and all of this, we have always talked about this, the 100th monkey effect kind of thing, where the more, and this is why we are so, this is why it's so important that each and every one of us speak about who we are and what we do authentically, be ourselves in the world, because it encourages others to be themselves. When and again, I go back to that expression that I use all the time, which is your only job is to raise your vibrational frequency, to mind your own vibration, and to take it everywhere you go and into everything you do. Because when you're in your highest frequency, your presence and nothing more, your presence and you speaking whatever comes to you at the time, creates that in others. And it's that 100th monkey effect, where I find it and then someone next to me finds it and then someone next to me, and it just ripples out. It's that ripple effect. It just spreads out. So this is, of course, the whole world is changing. And what's really super exciting for me is that as a channel, that's a bit out there for most people, or it has been. And what I'm now finding is that I am regularly approached by multimillionaires and people who do have these huge corporations. They want someone like me to channel through for them, because I channel into the future. I take people into their field of infinite possibility, where they can see, not create, but see their future. And so I'm doing this work with people who are at those sorts of levels, in control of the big companies, that can then slowly bring it into those companies, into their employees and things like that. Now, that's not to say that all of them are ready for that yet. There's so many that just, have wage slaves and all of those sorts of things. but we're getting there, and it just gives me so much hope for our future. You know, I had, and I'm sure I've talked to you about this before, I had an experience with my guides early on, and they took me into the future, and I saw the world in peace. And I now know that it's actually possible. I didn't know it back then. I was like, well, that's just impossible. That's like a utopia. Don't be ridiculous. How can we possibly have peace? And even now today, if you looked at the state of the war world, where all the money in every country is funneled into funding war, it might look like that there's no possibility of a world in peace, but there is. There's two camps right now, and we're bumping up against each other. And if we mind our own vibration, we will affect them as well. Because again, they're the same as us.
Exactly. And there's so much to do for ourselves. There's just so much that if we spend a minute thinking about what everybody else is doing, we've just wasted a minute on and I'm not talking about being a narcissist. I mean, just talking about how can I be at peace with the moment and work on that so that I do contribute my high vibrational frequency to feed the whole world. Because
absolutely,
when we're in our high vibrational frequency, we feed the world. And
there's no point wanting peace but being at war with someone else. And so it has to start. When I came back from that trip with my journey with my guides, I had stamped into me, it's there. Every time I talk about it, I feel it like a tattoo inside me. World peace through inner peace, one person at a time, and it starts with me, because I can't help anyone else find inner peace until I have it. So that's absolutely my priority.
I loved on your Facebook page too. I wrote it down on your personal Facebook page. I've got to say how much I loved it. Mystic, futurist, humanist, minimalist.
Well, really, I mean,
love it.
That's me. I only need me, because I know that I'm everything. So I don't carry clutter, and I'm kind of, the life that I'm living at the moment. I'm at my mum's place looking after her. I've left my son and his girlfriend at my place, and I'm okay with that. And I don't want to go back there. I'm just going to, when the time comes, I'm going to go somewhere else. I don't feel a need anymore to belong anywhere, to have something to hold me, because I can do that for myself. And, futurist, I think it's super important that we start this history that we get taught, and we get warned that history repeats itself. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to go, okay, that was it. That was what happened. Let's look to the preferred future. That same thing again. Current
we don't need to do it again. Yeah.
I think we're repeating it because we're being warned that it repeats itself. If we say history repeats, then, well, of course it does. If we all believe that history repeats, of course it does.
Maybe we can say we're learning a new way of being through history. Thank you, history. We've done you. Now we're doing something different, because we know what happens if we
didn't do it right, and we forgive ourselves for that. And we ask forgiveness of those we wronged. And this you can do for yourself personally, but we can also do it collectively for all of the wrongs that have gone on in the world. Because while we keep bashing each other about it and holding each other accountable for it, and when I say that, I don't mean we shouldn't be held accountable, but while we continue to drag it into the future, drag it into now, instead of leaving it in the past, we're going to keep creating it into the future. So that's why it's important for me about being a futurist. And then a humanist, it's important for me to be a humanist because, I mean, we're the greatest thing that ever existed. We're the physical manifestation of Source, the physical manifestation of all that is. Why would we want to put chips in us? Why would we want to try to change what the greatest creator in the world created? The greatest creator, full stop, because there's no in the world. why would we want to change that? Except to continue to improve it. And the only way to improve it is consciously, to raise our vibration and raise our consciousness. So that's the job of work for
And
me.
that's like accepting the gift that was on offer really at the beginning, just accepting it because it's already there, right?
Yeah, yeah. So humanism is very important to me because, you know, we really have to come back to self-love, which is, of course, when we're one, it's also love of everything else and everyone else. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, and of course, I'm a mystic. Well, I just am, right? And then minimalist, as I said, I don't need to carry anything anymore. I don't need possessions. Everything can be manifested when you have that complete faith. It might not look like you think it's supposed to look like, but if you let go of what you think it's supposed to look like, it'll be so much better.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess my sense around leadership as well, with regards to, you know, how we're talking about like minding our own vibration, two things occurred to me when you were talking about yourself working with leaders of big corporations. Two things occurred to me. Number one was that they need to mind their own vibration, because if they don't, and they don't own it, and they're not aware of it, then they're going to be either healing or hurting their organization, their team, their business.
So true.
It's either one or the other. If they're not aware of what's going on, in order to actually really empathize and get what's going on with your employees and your other leaders in the organization, you actually have to have a clue of what's going on with you.
Well, you have to recognize that we're all one, that lowly employee who's down on the shop floor or whatever and being paid minimum wage is just another version of you. So why would you be hurting yourself like that? Why would you be holding yourself back like that? And imagine the greater riches that you could have if you shared it.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of those sorts of things. So, but I think
the second thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes.
I was going to say.
You go with that. But there was just one thing I want to make sure that I say before we finish. Oh, okay. You can hold on to your second thing.
Yes.
All
No,
right,
it's
beautiful. Fine. I'm not sure that we've really kind of talked to the degree that we need to about doing your inner work and about healing yourself, because it's through healing yourself that you stop recreating all of the things that appear to be going wrong in the world. We've got to be present and sit with our emotions and allow ourselves to feel all of the things that we've been not feeling or trying not to feel. Like, oh, you know, boys don't cry. And I have lots of clients, when they come to me, they don't want to cry because they think they'll never stop. That was my experience way back when. I didn't want it because I had so much sadness inside me. It still shows up today. But now I just become present to it, allow myself to feel it, and it's gone, you know. So I just wanted to make that point, that this is everything we've been talking about here is about doing self-work and healing yourself.
It totally is. And it's actually a good segue into what I was going to say, because what I was going to say was that what leaders might not be aware of, and business owners of big corporations might not be aware of, is that there are so many of us doing that inner work now.
Yes.
That if they don't actually start to do that, people just walk with their feet. They're quietly quitting. They're doing their, I'm not even going to give it any energy, and I'm not even going to tell you why, because you wouldn't get it anyway. They're walking with their feet, and they're going to places that see them, and they're going to organizations that value what we're talking about.
And the beautiful thing about that is that someone who's even a little bit self-aware at sitting at the top of those corporations, that's why they're looking for people like us to help them, because that hurts them, that triggers them, and they go, oh, what's going on here? Why are these people leaving? So they come to learn why those people are leaving, and they open themselves up to higher consciousness and different ways of being and doing their inner work. I mean, that's what I do with people. I do the inner work with them. So that's absolutely the thing that they come for. So I say that to say this: they are aware now, and there's more and more of them becoming aware, and it's that ripple effect is really happening in the world right now.
1,000,000% agree with you. It's tangible. I mean, there's so many people walking with their feet that it's been recorded in the statistics and reporting by the government and the percentages of this, and it's really good. It's really good evidence. I'm so glad I got told to go into that world 4 years ago. I've actually just been told that what I'm meant to be doing now is just to focus on my podcasts and spreading as much information that I've learnt as I can out into the world, just in whatever form I can. And I'm excited about that because I really feel like you, being a channel and just sometimes you've got to look, you get told what your next step is, and it might not be familiar. And it wasn't familiar, but as soon as I got into it, I'm like, this is so familiar. Like I can do this standing on my head. I was so successful as well. It was a no-brainer for me. But it was just the turning up bit, that being in faith, and when you come into your intuition more, you're asked to do things that you wouldn't have
just
thought.
do them.
You just do them. But I've got to say, I'm feeling like I don't want to say back, but I kind of feel like, oh, this is so much more, like for me, so much more comfortable to just be talking about the solution and contributing, not experiencing all the dissonance that obviously was going on for that 4 years. And I would have to say, in light of our topic of being unfuckwithable, that during that 4 years, I used all those opportunities to make sure I was very much in that space of being unfuckwithable. And also,
I love that.
If I felt that was not something that I could maintain for my own serenity, if there was too much potential toxicity around me or what have you, that just wasn't ready to evolve, I just would simply step back from it. And I think that is also part of honoring where your vibration is leading you.
Absolutely. I mean, we call that boundaries, don't we? We've decided that, you know what, while I'm willing to accept that everything out there is a reflection of something within me that needs healing, and it's only showing up as a gift so that I can do this work, every now and then I don't want to do this work, and that's okay. And that's part of the self-acceptance, which is leading into the self-love, which is truly what we need to be moving into. Anything that isn't that is what's being shifted away.
Having said that, Anne, I've got to say that every single instance of an trigger or activation, as we're choosing to call it, I used it to make sure that I did what I needed to do when I stepped away from the situation. So I wasn't sitting in blame of the situation itself. I was just looking at it as
you take yourself away and do it in your own space and with absolutely. And sometimes we have to do that. I did want to just say, and I love that you have got that message to just now start really focusing again on your podcast, sharing this sort of information, because there's such a thirst for it out there in the world.
I think they're ready now.
And the thing about it is that when I first connected with all that is, I was told that they were from, and I am from, a speaker tribe. They just call it a speaker tribe. And I know that Seth, through Jane Roberts, mentioned a speaker tribe at some point as well. And the speaker tribes are gathering now. The speaker tribes are gathering now, because now is the time that, I mean, we've been through the entire existence manifesting in physical form in order to speak the truth and share it. And so there's more of us here now. And this is why there's such a fear of public speaking, a fear of being your authentic self, because in past experiences. It's not been a comfortable thing to do, and we've been killed for it and all of these things. But the speaker tribes are gathering now because the world is ready for it. And we've got to keep speaking, and we've got to keep yourself sharing other people with your audience and growing your audience and sharing your own incredible knowledge with your audience as well. So it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I feel like it's all in divine timing, perfect timing, and
Yep.
I'm super excited, and I want to know a little bit about what you're up to before we sign off as well, because I know where when I spoke to you 4 years ago, you were doing this
Was it really 4 years ago?
Yeah,
That's
Super Soul
incredible.
Academy and your self-care card decks, and
Yep. My Super Self Academy, yeah.
Super Self Academy. Sorry, I've got my glasses on.
No,
Super
that's
Self.
okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, no.
Super Self Academy.
Yeah.
So tell me more about what,
Well,
and I mean, okay, you've been called to obviously support your family. I heard about your mum and your son. So that's big.
yes,
Those are
yeah,
huge, big deals. And I can
yes.
totally relate to that. My mum passed last year. So that was in the
I'm
mix
sorry to
of
hear that.
everything. And my brother passed a few years ago as well. So there
Yeah,
was just me doing the whole
yeah,
thing. So
yeah.
a lot of
Right.
energy to hold around people being ill and for a period of time as well.
Yeah, and it really, 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 really triggers you, and
does,
you've got
yeah.
to sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'm doing that at the moment, but I'm so blessed that I get to work with people at the levels that I work with them, because I can afford to do what I'm doing, and not have to go chasing clients and things like that. So yeah, I get the same call, of course, that it's time to step it up with the speaking.
Oh, of
So
course.
I'm looking at
Yay.
getting on more stages and really not necessarily speaking to more people, because for me that's never been a thing. It's always about small people, small crowds, but people who can do it for all the
Mm,
people underneath them in their businesses, in their worlds, doing it with people who have that influence.
yes.
So that's where I'm really focused. So, and that means that I
Yay.
don't need to work with as many people, which means I
Mm.
can still do what I need to do here with my family. And then
Mm-hmm.
once that's, once that's all settled down and everything is where it needs to be, I'll have the opportunity to just, as I said, I'm not anchored anywhere. And that
Mm.
was my choice, because both my boys, my older boy, obviously, he finished school a long time ago, but my youngest finished school. He's now just turned 19.
Oh my
So
God.
I had made the decision that when he turned 18, that I would start to look at traveling and living this life of being someone who just goes where she's guided to. And of course, I was guided to do this with my family
Mm-hmm.
before it even happened. So I've been kind of waiting for what's happening, what's going on. Why do I feel that I need to stay here but not here? And so just following all that guidance. So that's what I'm looking forward to next. But in
Oh,
the
fantastic.
meantime, I do weekend retreats with my clients, or I go travel to them and sit with them for the day, do the healing work and do the teachings and everything. So it's an easier way to do it while I'm doing this with
Yes.
my family. I can
Yes.
just take off for the weekend or for a day here or there, and
Yeah.
it's just perfect. It works perfectly. It worked out perfectly. Of course,
Oh, that's
why would it
beautiful.
not?
Yeah, that's great. I love that. It's such a feeling of, oh, I'm just getting such a feeling of freedom for you.
Yeah.
I know that it's just beautiful to be able to have that freedom, that level of freedom. And I think
And yet,
walking in faith has prepared you for that. So, if you hadn't have prepared, you wouldn't have been able to do this. Like not a lot of people could do what you're talking about.
exactly. And yet, yesterday when I posted about the dress and manifesting it and all of those sorts of things,
Mm.
I made a point of saying that anyone looking into my life right now would think, oh my God, the poor thing. She's got no freedom. She's got so much unhappy things happening. And yet at the same time, I have so much freedom. This is the future, is the world of the paradox,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So no judgment of either, just a balance of the two, a swinging between the two all the time, and not judging it in any way, because that's actually what causes the problem.
Yeah,
That's what causes
exactly.
the drama and the fear and the whatever to come up.
Exactly. And people can still find you at Aleckson.info, is that right? On your website?
Yeah, and Aleckson.info. But you know what? I love people to connect with me on social media, on Facebook.
Yeah, it's good.
It's just
it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's so nice. And Anne's got a Facebook page, so you can look for her at All That Is Anne on Facebook. And often you're doing live streams, or you jump on or what have you, and you invite people to do comments, and you like to answer their questions and things like that, which is so beautiful. And it's just a testament to connecting, which we want to encourage. The speaking and the connecting is what we want to encourage everybody to do. So yeah, I really value what you're doing. I'm so excited to see just to keep connecting with you too, Anne, and just to see what's next for both of us, because I think it's an exciting journey that we're both walking in faith and seeing what turns up for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I just want to make mention too, just so that you know, because I only just did this yesterday, I published I guess you could say a podcast that I'm not going to add to. It's just just short bite-sized snippets for Everyday Lightworker 101. So I did that yesterday because I had them all on YouTube, and I had them on 5D TV, and that sort of has run its course now, and I wanted to transfer them into podcast form. So I've got like 96.
Great idea.
Yeah, I got like 96 lessons, basically working with the 12 principles, cross-sectioning them with the 8 chakras, because I include the ear chakras because you know how important they are to me. And so if anybody wants to jump on and Spotify, Apple, or any other, podcast place that Acast do their thing through, they're only like between 5 to 10 minutes, and you can have a nice little enlightened start to your day or end of your day.
Sounds absolutely perfect. And, short snippets for our short attention spans.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I know. It's so good just to be able to do something. Well, thanks so much, Anne, for joining me today for this wonderful conversation. I loved it, and I enjoy seeing what's next for us both as we move forward.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Lots of love to you.